Okay, well, I guess we need to get the ball rolling. I just love taking introductions, and was running just a little bit late because we've got some surprise guests that I just found out about 20 minutes ago. So coming on later, that really are going to make this into a fabulous webinar. So I'd like to welcome everybody to our Saturday webinar today, and just really excited to be involved in Xango. Some of the pictures that you saw a couple of weeks ago of us in Hawaii with our family, and of course the Xango Elevation Retreat was there. It's really amazing. You know, you just almost have to pinch yourself how much our life has changed in the last 6 years since we found out about this great company. You know, it's just such a rare thing, Xango. I mean, you've heard of all the, the record growth, and in fact, what we're hearing now is close to $2 billion in sales since they launched almost 7 years ago this fall. And so really a phenomenal, I call it the Xango business phenomenon, really nothing like it. And so obviously we're grateful to be involved and just have so many great things happening in Xango world right now. We're going to be talking about one of those great things here in a minute, which is a new really recruiting presentation system that we've been working with for the last couple of months. And we've got some guests on to talk about that. We've got the XGO Pro system that is adding another dimension of follow-up and of retention that we've never had. This is a history-making kind of event, a nationwide tour happening right now that can really boost your business. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end. And, of course, we have a new fantastic product launching July 20th. And I can tell you it is absolutely going to be lights out in terms of the way it makes you feel. And as an experiment, actually I'm getting way ahead of myself, but I'm on a bit of a roll here. As an experiment, I actually went off our test batch for a couple days this week, and it was it was awful. I could hardly stand the difference. I just feel so much youthful vitality. So that's July 20th, X51, and soon, hopefully, very soon, we'll know the real name of that. So let's get the ball rolling here. Gosh, is this the perfect presentation system? I could call it a recruiting system, but I really thought, I don't know if recruiting is quite the right term. What would be the perfect system as far as I'm concerned? And what is it about the Go Team webinar system that we have joined forces with here? What is it about it that really is unique? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? One of the challenges, a presentation is everything. I think we know that, right? And so how do we get the correct information in front of the right people? Isn't that what it's all about? The correct information, compelling information in front of the right people. And the challenge that people have is in being able to deliver that information in an effective manner. So, traditionally our system has been based on always using tools, getting people to your website, getting them an information packet, initiating that three-way call. All of that has been the beginning part of what our exposure process that we talked about last week. But unfortunately, a CD and a website may not be, first of all, it does not have that live component. And as I've said before, even though I love mymangosteen.com and I love the website, what the problem is when you send somebody to your website, who knows what they look at, how long do they spend there? You do not have their captive attention. They may spend a minute here, a minute there, and boom, they're gone. They think they know what it's all about, and really they don't know anything because they haven't looked at a proper presentation. So I've always thought that if you could come up with an online presentation that was duplicatable, that everybody could use, then you'd have a great system. And so certainly live events, there's nothing better probably than a live event, a business opportunity meeting, if you've got a good one going, if you have a regular local events, there's probably nothing better than that. But, it's hard to get people out to meetings, so there's always a challenge there. What if the meeting isn't very good? What if there isn't one in your area, right? You have to start your own. And so with a webinar, with an online system like this is something you can use anywhere in the world, right? There's no limitations. If somebody has an internet connection, a telephone, and if they have a computer, you can present them to this presentation, and it's live and purposefully not recorded, so that there's a sense of urgency, and people have to go, and they have to attend, and they have to register. And then if you can get them to see it, then how about having a professional who is already successful in the business, somebody with credibility, doing the presentation for you? And so your job becomes very simple after that. So what we're going to do is a little bit of training on it, and it's an evolving system. This system has only been in vogue, I think, for 3 or 4 months. We've been working with it for a month or two, and there's lots of new things coming up with it. But I also wanted to talk about a little bit about why we got involved with Go Team. This is Terry and I and Anna Mann and John David Mann at the 100K dinner. And I've known John actually since about 1995. Yes, we were in his downline in another company, and he was like this big guru at the top of the compensation plan, had this huge downline, over 100,000 people, and we were in his downline. We didn't have a lot of communication with him, but already then he was like the patriarch of network marketing. What a lot of people don't realize is John is like an industry icon, not just from the distributor standpoint, but from somebody who has written books about it, who has edited network marketing magazines. He has a book out called The Go-Giver. We had him on here. That's a business bestseller. He's also written a book called The Zen of MLM, John David Mann, which I have here on my shelf. He's also been involved in writing, co-writing books like The Slight Edge. So, I mean, he has a tremendous amount of experience, not just in network marketing, but in how to present things. And so him and Anna and her team of Mike, which you're going to hear from in a few minutes, John Stetler, her sponsor, they've all put together the system. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for the people behind this, and that's the only way, really, that we would get involved. You have to really trust somebody to lock horns. And so this is the webinar schedule that you can see at goteamwebinar.com, and so that's how it works. So putting it into action. And this is from a Getting Started webinar that they're working on. Some of these slides are ones that they said that I could use today from a Getting Started webinar that is going to be introduced very shortly into the system, so that every week at least, if not once, maybe twice a week, your new candidates that are coming into the system will then have a live training. And this training is something that everybody can access, because it's really important once they come in, what do they do next? And we want a duplicatable system for that. So one of the things they put in the training here, which I think is very powerful to lay the groundwork, is there's only two kinds of actions: business building actions and supporting actions. But both are good, but only business building actions grow your business. So what is a business building action? To me, it's all about sponsoring. Business building is about sponsoring. And, of course, helping the people that you bring in sponsor. I mean, that is the key to the whole thing as far as I'm concerned. Sponsoring, to me, has always been the key to success. I've always known that you have to sponsor a lot of people. I mean, that's always been, at least that's the way it's been for me, that you've always got to be bringing in new blood. And if you're not sponsoring, honestly, you're in retirement. I don't know how else to say that. I mean, you're either bringing in new members on a regular basis, or you're retired, or in management mode. And I know a lot of people would call it management mode, but it's kind of like being retired. If you're not out there doing the work that you're expecting other people to do, then you're not doing the work, you're not being the leader, but you're also not actually building a business. Your business will only grow from bringing in new members, right? Either you or your downline. And being as this is a follow the leader business, if you're not sponsoring, then your downline tends not to sponsor, and your business will start to shrink. I mean, that's just the way that it is. And so we need to have as many powerful systems as we can find for bringing people into the business. So I don't want you to think that this is the only way that you can recruit just by using this system. This is another tool to use. And if you like it and you're excited about it, then you'll want to use it. Maybe you'll use it almost exclusively. Maybe you will just add this into your other daily method of operation as an additional exposure point. And that works fine. You can use it however you want. And so what we're talking about here is the basic business building actions, is the invitation, getting people to look at what it is that you have, making an effective presentation, and looks like we've misspelled presentation. Even I picked that one up, and then following up. And that is very simple, isn't it, and very key. So the presentation then is done in this particular system by professionals, but it also can be done by CDs, right? It can be done by live events, but the invitation still has to be there, and the follow-up still has to be there no matter what method of presentation that you use. So, yes, the invitation could be to a webinar, an event, a CD, a DVD, a website, or the presentation, the Go Team webinar presentation. And actually, I think you're going to want to use them all, right? It's just in what order do you want to use them? Is the webinar the first part of your presentation? I think in most cases it probably should be. I think it's a more effective presentation than a CD because it's timely. It's right now. If you can get somebody into it, you know, they can watch it tonight. And so I see that the CDs, the DVDs, and the website become follow-up to the webinar, not before. I think it's better that way. Get them on the webinar first. Get them in front of a proper presentation. Then this other information validates the presentation. Now, you can do it in reverse order if you want. I mean, you could do it in any order you want. So the presentation, let the tool make the presentation is the important part of this system, of course, so that you're not thinking that you have to make the presentation. And, of course, follow-up. And this is where it probably is going to break down for most of you because people have very, very weak follow-up skills as a rule. You know, follow-up is the missing link. Gosh, you know, it is the key, but it is the most abused part of the key. You know, people are really good at initiating, but they're really not very good at follow up. And we're going to hear a little bit later how to set that follow-up up at the same time as you set up the presentation appointment. But the important part of following up here is to do it as part of a three-way call. If you can get this down, if you can work this system where you're getting, see, people, it's a follow the leader business. I'm telling you, you know, people will do as you do, not as you tell them to do. And so if you bring somebody in through a three-way call, through introducing your upline to them on a follow-up call, then they will tend to do the same thing. You're wondering why there isn't more three-way calling going on in your organization? I'm telling you why. You're not doing it. You're not bringing your new people in on a three-way call. You haven't showed them how to do the business correctly. So it's all about demonstrating. So using webinars effectively, and this is, we're going to talk a little bit about this with some guests here, so I'm going to go through this very, very quickly. You know, invite everyone personally. I mean, really, you want to pick up the phone and call people and increase their interest in what it is that you have, and ask them to clear their schedule. You know, I mean, it's so simple. Are you online? I mean, that's just learn to use some terms. Hey, listen, are you on the internet? I'd like to show you something. I'm involved in a new project that I think is really exciting, and I'd like to have you have a look at it tonight. Have you got like a half an hour tonight? 6 o'clock, you know, whatever the time is for that night. And I just want you to look at something. I'm working on a new project. I thought about you because I have a lot of respect for you. I'd like to get your opinion, and if it looks good, well, then I'd like to introduce you to some of the other people I'm working with. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be a long introduction. I really like this, though. Complete the registration process for them. You know, go to the Go Team webinar site. Click on the webinar link of the one that you want to send them to, and up comes a registration form. Type in their first name, their last name, their email address for them, and when you hit submit, then they will get an email that all they have to do is join the webinar, plus it reminds them of the webinar coming up. Now, here's really taking it up another notch. Call them 1 hour before their appointment. This is an appointment. 1 hour before the appointment to be sure they receive the confirmation, and, of course, and to remind them that the webinar is coming up tonight. And then follow up with your prospects immediately after the webinar or no more than 24 hours later. So, and then, of course, you introduce them to your upline via a three-way call. So that's how to use them correctly. And so a lot of people, I think, are sending people to their websites or to the webinar system or to that link, and only a certain percentage of them are probably clicking the link, and then they're going to the webinar, but they don't have a follow-up established. And so they're not following up. They don't know if they were really there or not. And that's easy to do. So you really want to build your nights around the webinar, so that you have the webinar time booked off, and you have after the webinar time booked off for follow-up and three-way calls. You need to set up a schedule of which webinars you're going to work in your business. Now, I'm not saying that you can't send people to a webinar on a night that you're not available, but you better have time. If you're going to invite somebody to a Wednesday night webinar and you can't follow up with them after Wednesday night, you better have time within the next 24 hours to follow up with them, or else you're not demonstrating the system. So we got some guests that I want to bring on here that will help add a lot of meat to this system. That's why I've kind of run through those slides very, very quickly. And Mike Raish is going to be joining us a bit later. I've asked him for some help here from people that have been working the system longer to come on and give us some of their wisdom of using this longer than we have. And this is Tim. Are you there, Tim?
I am. Hi, Art.
Hey, Tim, and let's see here. Let's bring your picture up. Tim, great talking to you yesterday. I really appreciate you coming on our webinar today. You're a 5K from Minnesota. That's where the Mike team headquarters is, right?
That's right. Yep.
Well, Tim, before we get into how you've been using the webinar, I just wanted you to tell your story, of what's your background, how did you get involved in Zango, what do you like about it, and let's get into how you've been using the webinar system.
Sure. Well, it's a little different than most people. As I told you last night, Art, I knew Mike from church. He and his wife was in a parenting class that my wife and I were teaching at our church, and one time he kind of came up missing a few Wednesdays, and that's after he got into Zango, and he had just laid down and left his Amway or Quick Start business, and I kind of heard through the grapevine he was in some kind of network marketing, but I didn't know what. So I actually talked to him at church one day and said, Mike, I understand you got a home-based business. Can you tell me more about it? I'd like to know about it. And he called me. He said, well, I'll give you a call. And he gave me a call about, a couple days later and said, Tim, were you really interested or just being nice? I said, no, I'm really interested. So I actually came to him, and we met. He sent me some information. We met over coffee, and I've been in real estate for 24 years, and the funny thing is I've had a lot of success, and I was on Mike's chicken list, and so for about a year, but he never contacted me. So we ended up joining his team, and Anna and John, and we're just excited to be a part of an incredible team. So that's kind of how I came to Zango, and I'm really excited about an income that I don't have to start over at zero every month and every year like I have for real estate for the last 24 years.
Yeah, you were mentioning that, and of course, and a lot of people don't realize, but before network marketing, Terry and I were in real estate too. It's a great business for workaholics for sure, But like you said, I mean, there's no residual there, and so every month, is a new month, and you've got to make sales that month, usually to new people. You've got to always, it's kind of like a headhunting business in a sense where, you've got to recruit or find new people every month to generate income. And so with the real estate business struggling, I suppose you're looking to create another six-figure income from someplace else, right?
Exactly. Something to replace my real estate is the idea. Yeah,
right, Tim. So, give us a little background. How long have you been working with the Go Team webinar system? And how has it been working for you? How have you been using it?
Well, Mike and I talked a lot about how we would use it, and because like most people, we made contacts with people, sent out CDs, sent them to our website, one or the other. And again, just like you were talking earlier, Art, it was hit and miss because sometimes you just never knew when they were going to actually listen to the CDs or what they actually watched. So from the conception, I can't honestly remember how long we've been doing it. It's been a couple of months, I believe now. I've been really excited about it because just as you spoke, Art, the concept behind getting somebody by appointment, where I actually tell people up front that, listen, this is a limited number of people that can be on this webinar, and so if you cannot make it tonight, please give me a call back so I can open it up for somebody else. And I've had somebody actually call me back, so that it puts emphasis on it, and so they see the value there. And again, the idea behind it, so you know what they're watching, and they're watching hopefully the whole thing.
Right. And so you've had pretty good success at getting people out to the webinars and watching them, and so far.
Yes, tremendous success. We've been working quite a bit the Promise Co-op lately, and I've been doing my own leads as well as for several people in my organization. And I would guess I have a success rate at least 9 out of 10 people I talk to go on the webinar, and then as you talk, that's just the beginning. Then the follow-up starts from there. And
just hold on a second there, because that's a pretty powerful statistic there, and we might as well jump into this a little bit before we bring another Mike on here. But so there's many different ways. I mean, you can use it for your warm market. I can see how powerful it would be for the meat market, what I call the meat market, the people you meet every day when you run into them in the street. What you're talking about is the Promise Co-op, the radio co-op, and of course traditionally, and the way that the radio works is that you three-way people into a sizzle call while you have them on the phone, and that obviously has worked very well for people. But you're deciding now to have the first step go to a webinar, invite them to a webinar, and you're having a really high percentage of people turn out for that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, basically, I tell people on the three-step plan that the first step is, I would tell them, John, the first step is for me to get you on a live webinar, lasts about 30, 40 minutes, and the second step would be to follow up, get your questions answered with one of my business partners, and the third step would be, if you see what you like or have some interest, it would get you on some websites to you, possibly some additional information in the mail. And then from there, I'll just say, so are you available tonight? We actually have a webinar tonight at 8 o'clock that I can register you for and get you signed up for it. And
right.
Usually they either are or they're not. Or I may say we have one tonight at 8 o'clock or the one tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Give them a choice of two. And it works great.
Yeah, and so you've been signing up quite a few people as a result of that?
Absolutely. Not only getting them on the webinar, but getting people in the business as well.
Uh-huh.
And then the neat thing is, they're duplicating that as well. So that's the best thing of the whole program.
Okay. Anything else you wanted to add, Tim, before I bring Mike on?
No, I think that's primarily it. Is just just to believe that yourself that this works. And if you look at it as setting an appointment, and this is just the way we do it, people don't even ask me very few questions. They just say, okay. And if they do ask, what can you tell them about more? I would love to tell you everything. And you know what? The webinar will explain it all in detail, who we are, what we are, and how we do it. And then we'll chat after the webinar's over.
Yeah, and of course, part of our process here is building those relationships, connecting with people, maybe telling our story, and then inviting them to have a look at what we've got and giving them this, what I call the perfect presentation. What I mean by that is that it's a presentation that presents the entire Visango story very systematically by a professional presenter. And what's great about it is that they're all pretty much the same. The slides are the same. We're all using the same slides. Of course, everybody delivers them a little bit differently, so no two are the same. I haven't even delivered the same one twice. But you kind of know what you're bringing someone to, so that you're not worried about what's going to come, that you can trust this presentation to present for you. So thanks a lot, Tim. Appreciate you, and thanks for coming on and helping us out this morning.
Thanks a lot. My privilege.
Tim, and next is another Mike. Mike, let's see. I'm not sure what your last name is.
Almost Mike Rushing.
Mike Rushing and Mike Raish?
Yes.
That's okay. No wonder I was having problems. That's almost two right. Let me bring up a picture of Mike. I think I've talked to you maybe once, Mike, or I've heard of you for sure.
Yeah, we run kind of in the same circles up here in Seattle, so we see each other at different events.
And there's a beautiful picture of your family. You live up whereabouts then, Mike?
Seattle, West Seattle.
West Seattle. Okay. And
this is certainly not West Seattle, but
that is not West Seattle, probably.
This is last year's summer vacation in the sand dunes of Upper Michigan. And
oh yeah, beautiful out there.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know they had sand like that in Upper Michigan.
Yeah, neither did I. But my wife's from Michigan, and so we go there every summer, and about to head there the same. But you're seeing part of my motivation for actually pulling the trigger on getting into this business is we started about 5 years ago adopting children from China. And we're actually in process for another 11-year-old boy.
Wow.
And I've got been fortunate enough to be in an industry that pays well in the data communications industry, but started doing the math and realized I was not going to be able to provide proper education for these children doing what I've always been doing, and so led me to look for ways to supplement my income, and been hearing the Andy Willoughby commercial for years, and finally called on it about this time last year. Mike Raish is the one that responded to that, thank goodness, and so I got in about a year ago, and didn't really have my head around it. Had only a few hours a day that I could dedicate to it, and started really with a co-op in September. Mike took the lead on that, really helped a lot, established kind of a little groundswell of business for me, of downline for me, and kind of handed the reins over to me around November. And so I didn't get solidified around this until convention in Salt Lake, and that just really got both my wife and I a better sense of what we had a hold of, and recommitted and got more involved, and really what attracted me to this in the first place was the co-op opportunity, not my warm market, and so that was where my focus was, and it has been predominantly, and I'll talk about warm market in just a second, but then coming to, I guess had kind of a trifecta effect going to the Vegas convention. I came out of there with the information that was shared there, and then at the same time bought, while I was there, Bob Schmidt's Key to the Vault 1 and 2, Volume 1 and 2. Mike had been recommending I listen to that, and I didn't heed his recommendation to my demise, and so I started plugging those in, and what happened is between those two things, my belief in what I had a hold of just went through the roof, and it just came together for me. And then the third thing of the trifecta was the webinars. So what I had was my belief, and I had a process, and I just said to myself, my team, I said, here's our new process. Step 1 is the webinar. We do things a little different. Step 2, info packet. Step 3 is the 3-way follow-up. And so we've been running that with that, and that we've just seen, I'd say the results are still coming in, but we're seeing a trend that looks very positive, looks like it's going to just increase, and we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, so you're basically using the webinars as your first introduction to candidates, and then naturally, once you've got them, and one of the things I like about the webinar is it's almost like a pre-screening process, that before you invest any money on a packet, you've had somebody go through a presentation and a hoop, and you know that they're reliable, that they will come and watch something before you invest money on a packet, which
yes.
I believe that everybody should get a packet still. I don't think this takes the place of CDs and things like that, but you don't have to send a packet to somebody that hasn't shown that they are serious.
Correct, and actually my posture and my belief is such that, like Tim mentioned, it's assumed that step 1, when I talk to these people, step 1 is attend the webinar. And if I get any pushback on that, already in my mind, I already know I am not going to share detail on the phone. I'm not. They're going to first hear the name Zango in the presentation, and so much so that if I get pushback to where a person is not going to proceed, then I'll unplug, and I'll just say the timing's just probably not right, and this may not be for you. So knowing that that's not an option, then I'll have some verbiage at the top of my mind. This rarely do I get in this position. If somebody will say, well, so can you tell me more about it? And I say, well, we've spent a lot of focus on making sure that we have a process here and a presentation that will be all inclusive and be the best way to give you an introduction to this opportunity. And so if they push back even more, then I have another little firmer stance, posture, but it really goes there. For the reason that you set the momentum, and the expectation that this is step one. And I'd say, hey, we believe this is a reasonable request for someone to, at the convenience from their own computer, we give you options, who are seriously looking at building a business to do this. And that usually they say, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, okay. So now you mentioned that you mostly started working the co-op. Are you starting to work your warm market now?
Yeah, that's a good point. Is what this process does, is it two things. Within the co-op community, as we're presenting to them or going through this process that I just mentioned, it's freeing them up to where we can talk very quickly about helping them tap into their warm market.
Right.
And they are seeing how they can do this because they're saying, I can do what you did for me. So duplication is key, and setting it up for that epiphany
right.
is huge. So we don't depart from the script. And so when that person, we get to that time where we say, let's talk about your warm market, and then we say, recall back to how we presented to you. And so they're able to recall that, and it frees them up, and they say, I can do this. And so just a few stats here. I was thinking about one person in particular that I worked with, Kim Teft. He's a co-op lead that came to me, I think about the middle of May, and Kim had been favorably predisposed a year earlier to the whole process. I didn't know that when I called him, but he was watching to see what the new process was. He had now the funds to build a business, and so
right.
So I stayed on script. I'd come back from Vegas and said, this is the way we're going to do it. So he was one of my first ones that I just stayed true to the whole thing. He divulged through the 3 steps that I think it was when we talked to Mike that he had actually seen this before, and so we got going. We got Kim signed up at the end of May. He immediately got into co-op and got 2 shares. So throughout June, we've had about a total of 9 so far that we've looked at, and so here's how those 9 have played out.
So these are 9 leads that have gone to the webinar. Is that what you're saying?
These are 9 leads that all but one have gone to the webinar.
Okay.
Okay. One we're still just recently received, and so we're still in process with that person. But of those 9, 2 have signed up. One of those viewed on Wednesday, and we've signed up and even had our getting started and had our first coaching session all over a period of about 48 hours. So we signed up another lady this morning, and then so that's our 2. 2 are seriously considering. They've gone through the 3 steps, and we have our follow-up call later next week. 2 are at still in various stages of discovery, going through the 3 steps, and 2 have said no. And even the 2 that had said no, there's a positive there, is because I don't feel like I've got to reach for new information to get to them so they can make an informed decision. I feel like they saw the presentation, so did they see the entire presentation? They did, okay, then I know what information they were shared. And if they are telling me no after seeing that, then I'm able to let them go with, I talk to them. I make sure that they're considering the right things. I ask a few questions, and then I'm able to let them go with confidence that this is probably not a fit. And it compresses that time. I don't chase them for 3 weeks. I don't have them on my, we've all been there.
Yeah.
And so it frees up even these people who their experience has been through the co-op. It frees them up to think about their warm market. It helps us to coach their warm market. And now what's happening with myself is able to say, hey, there are, I've made a list. There are 30, 40 people that need to just come and listen to the webinar. And when I go and talk to my warm market, I use pretty much the same approach. I don't mention what it is. I just say, hey, I'm going to be purposefully vague here, Bob, but it's something that I've been poking a fork at, using some Mike Raich's terminology, been poking a fork at for a while, seeing if it's real. It is real. I'm all in. This is going to be for me, and I thought about you. You should take a look. Are you going to be in front of your computer for about 30, 40 minutes Thursday night? And don't get pushed back from, what is it? Tell me more. I tell them I don't want to bias them. I say I don't want to bias you. I just want you to look at this and have a look.
Yeah.
And we'll talk afterwards. And if you see something that grabs you, great. If not, no big deal. And so just having that mindset has freed me up personally. It's freed up my team. We're seeing a lot more warm market leads come to the webinar. It's changed our coaching. It's compressed everything. The timeline has been compressed. And so I just say stay tuned. The results are still coming in, but it's something that our ability to train, our ability to teach duplication has just crystallized. And I think that's what you're sensing in what we're seeing the early results of.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that, Mike. Great job, and really appreciate you coming on. We'll be seeing you again at one of the Seattle events. We've got a couple things coming up this summer. Sherman Unkefer, July 11th at Bellevue, and then, of course, we got the Dugweed Tour August 15th. So thanks a lot, Mike Rushing, for coming on and sharing your information, and great job, actually. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Glad for the opportunity.
And we've got one more guest to come on here. Just before we bring Mike Raich on here, I thought I'd share the results of the little poll that we just had. And so there you go. 65% of the people on here have at least seen one. So for the other 35%, that's your next step, guys. You got to go check out one of these for yourself. See what the presentation is all about. Now, I'm not saying that you need to watch the webinar, these webinars over and over again, although I think it's a good thing to be on them more than once. But your goal then becomes to bring people to them. So let me bring on now 20K Mike Raich. And hold on a second. Need to close the poll before I can bring up. Are you there, Mike?
I am. Can you hear me, Art?
Thanks. Yes, Mike, I can hear you fine, and thanks for coming on. I know you were busy and you weren't going to make it on, but I really felt like we needed to do a training. And I just want to say, I've been working with Mike a bit behind the scenes on the Go Team webinar, and he's amazing. Of course, we're always like this, aren't we, Mike? But I wish there was a Mike Raich on my team. I mean, you do a great job of all the logistics. You're behind there creating webinar presentations and changing the PowerPoints, organizing the system. I really appreciate all you do behind the scenes to make that system work well. So thank you for that.
You're so welcome, Art.
Well, so far, let's have a little bit of your background, Mike, for people that haven't heard your background. Before we get into some of the tips on inviting and so on and your feedback, what's your background? How did you get involved in Zango?
Well, I got in Zango. Obviously, I was sponsored by Anna. Most people know who Anna Gabriel Mann is. But prior to that, when I was 22 years old, I actually got in Amway and, had some tremendous experiences there, had some mild success. For those of you that have ever been in Amway, we reached what was called the Ruby level and, had some good years. All the while I was doing that, when I started out, I was delivering pizzas. I was still going to college, actually. Then I waited some tables, and then a friend of mine said, hey, we can make some money in mortgages, and and did that. So I did both of them. And, because of that, because of the great market in mortgages and having a pretty, a really nice supplemental income in Amway, we had a pretty nice lifestyle. And my story is kind of long and intense, but I saw a crack in the armor. This was back in it was about 2.5 years ago. I saw a little crack in the armor, some things that I personally didn't agree with, and this has nothing to do with Amway. It just has to deal with some people I was working with. And I just said, you know what? I've been hearing this darn 3-step plan ad for 4 years probably in my car, driving to mortgage appointments and things like that, and Amway appointments, whatever. I just heard it over and over and over. And I just remember thinking, gosh, I need to look into that. Anything that's been playing that long. And I left a message, or I think I went to the website about 1 o'clock in the morning, and it was Anna that called me. She left me 6 or 7 messages, because the truth was, the second I requested information, I actually thought, what did I get myself into? And it was my wife that actually said, hey, you need to call her back. So I called her back, and to humor her, I asked her some questions. It took me about 2 minutes to pick up on the fact that I was dealing with somebody that had some knowledge about this industry, so I spent 4 months talking to her. I signed up. I spent another 4 months or so just kind of sitting around this thing and still asking questions. And then ultimately in May of 2007, I resigned my Amway business and started over. It was at the same time that the mortgage industry basically crashed. So I went from 2 incomes to 0 incomes back in that was back in May of 2007. So it was it was an exciting time though. We were very excited about our future. And we just got busy, had a couple early disappointments with some people who I thought were going to be awesome, and that's kind of my Zango story. That's how I got in.
Yeah, this is amazing, Mike. I got dropped from the call while you were talking there, and I thought you got dropped until my line went dead, and so I realized finally that. So I missed your story, but I'm sure it was great. We never missed a beat. I thought you were breaking up, and it was me. So, you told the story about how Anna had to persist 8 times or 8 calls to get you involved, or what?
I did tell that, yep, and I kind of told my story. So you're wondering, obviously about the webinars. So, I thought Mike and Tim just did an awesome job, and, I'm younger than both of them, but I'm a proud dad just listening to them, because the truth is I've learned a ton from them. Him and I, the 3 of us and several others talk all the time, so we're always bouncing stuff off, and it's really about posture, and I have the same posture. I've toyed with several things. I started out with the webinar. I work my warm market and co-op, just by the way, so I'll kind of give some examples for both. But, with the 3-step plan, I, for years just played the audio message. I know some people didn't, but I actually liked the audio message. I thought it was a great way to just kind of qualify them. They're either looking after they listen to it or they're not. And I started doing that with the webinar as well. But the truth is, and they're actually taking some measures to do this, the Internet is the bathroom walls of cyberspace, and people can post anything they want out there, and this industry is notorious for quitters, wanting nobody else to succeed. So what happens is they get a doctor to write something or whatever. It's really the oldest trick in marketing is where people, put a blog about something, call themselves an expert, and then get you there knowing full well you're going to do a word search on Zango and try to sell you something else. It's really the oldest trick, and it's pretty slimy, but people do it all the time. So I thought, I want to control their information flow. And this happened, this really about the beginning of May is when we really started to turn the corner on this. So I would say about, after the first week of May. And just like for 3-step leads, I call them on the phone, and I still think, the most important thing is just being friendly with people. How you doing? How's the weather? Or, if you hear kids in the background, how old are your kids, talking about them. And then I just steer the situation, and my first question really after what do you do, what's got you looking, how many kids do you have, just connecting with them. Joe, have you ever been on a webinar before? Have you ever heard that term? And what's funny is half of them say no. They don't know what the term is. So I say, hey, no big deal. I hadn't heard of it either. I said, it's basically just a live presentation you can watch and listen to right over your computer. And the truth is, Joe, that's actually the reason I'm calling you, is that's actually your first step. Is, I said, we've got a really tight system in place. We work with some incredibly serious people. And the truth is we're actually looking for some people who are at least looking enough and are smart enough to understand that you can't explain a billion-dollar industry in 30 seconds. So we've put together these webinars that are 35, 40 minutes long. Are you free tonight? I could tell you how to get on that. And, you know, most people say, yeah, I'm free tonight. That sounds great. And I said, and here's what we'll do, Joe. You'll just sit in on the webinar, and then after it's done, I'll give you a call. And if you have an interest after going through the webinar, it's pretty simple. I'm just going to send you some more information so you can do some more research. And then the third step, Joe, is I said, you know, just like any business, you'd want to meet the people you're going to be in business with. So I'll just give you a chance to, you know, to ask some questions to some other people that have been using the three-step plan real successfully. And, you know, that way you can meet real people, which is, I think, what most people want to do.
Oh, hold on a second, Mike, here, because you're going fast, and I love what you're saying, and I don't want it to go past people, because Tim was telling me about this, too, and this is, to me, one of the keys here, and we forgot to get to this part of Tim's story out. But what you're talking about here is you're setting up the follow-up at the same time you're setting the appointment for the webinar, and you're positioning the follow-up in terms of meeting people and when you're going to do it. The whole thing is all done at once. This is like a whole program. You're very, very powerful, right?
That's exactly right. And then I also tell them this, and I say, hey, Joe, and by the way, here's what the webinar is going to do. It's going to tell you a whole bunch more about our company. It's going to tell you a whole bunch more about the products we deal with. But more specifically, Joe, what it's going to do is it's going to tell you how we do what we do, which is, I think, what most people are wondering. And most people say, yeah, you're right. I said, so, yeah, that's why the webinar is put together. And I said, so here's what's going to happen from here. I said, you're going to get 2 emails from me. One's going to come directly from me. It's going to have my contact information in case you have any questions. You're going to get a second email from Go Team Trainers. For those of you that have never registered for a webinar, once you register, the confirmation that comes to you, the from person is Go Team Trainers. I said, so make a mental note of that or write it down. And then I explain it to them. If they've never been on a webinar, I explain that there's going to be a link right at the top. Click that link. You know, it might prompt you to install a small piece of software. It's totally safe. If it does, just click yes or run. And then just turn the speakers up in your computer and sit back and enjoy the presentation. And I tell them, I said, make sure you log in at least 5 minutes early, I said, because the beginning of the webinar is critical. I said, you don't want to miss the beginning of the webinar. And the reason is because we get a chance to edify the speaker. It's really where we give the history of Zango, you know, and things like that. Now with, you know, kind of going back to warm market, which I'm a big believer in warm market too. Tim is from my warm market. Mike is from the three-step plan. And both have obviously turned out to be really good. I'll just give an example. You know, I work out at a gym about a mile from my house, and I was seeing this guy there over and over, and you know, just for whatever reason, a lot of times I just like to get in the gym and out, but I'm like, you know, this was after Vegas, and I'm like, I need to get a couple more local leaders here, and I just stuck my hand out and said, hey, I'm Mike, I see you here all the time, what's your name? He said, my name's Terry. Terry, what do you do? He's like, well, I'm kind of retired, was forced to take an early retirement, and, you know, so I'm thinking about working part-time for my brother, and we go to the lake a lot in the summer, things like that. And I said, wow, interesting. I said, you know what? I just kind of went into it. I said, you know what? You and I need to talk sometime. And then the question always comes up is, well, what do you do?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you do? And most people have no idea how to answer that. And for me, it's always kind of been my personal story. I said, wow, it's interesting you asked, Terry. I said, you know, I spent 10 years in mortgages, and, you know, you kind of know how the market's gone there. And a couple of years ago, I had a chance meeting with a husband and wife couple. One's a former college professor. The other is a best-selling business author. And you know, they've got some pretty unique things that they're doing from a business standpoint, and I've been able to do it all from home. I said, you know what, I got to run right now, but you know what, give me your number, put it on a piece of paper, I'll give you a call sometime, and if you want, I'd be happy to share, here's the key, share some information with you. Now, he has no idea what that information is, so when I called him, he's still in the pipeline, because he's been out of town for 2 weeks, but the bottom line is when I called him, I said, hey, Joe, remember I told you, actually Terry, I said, hey, Terry, I said I was going to share some information with you. Actually, the best thing you could do is, what are you doing in 15 minutes? He said, nothing. I said, great. You know what, get on this webinar, take a look. My business partner is going to be talking. There's going to be literally people on this webinar from all over the world, because we're actually going international now. But why don't you hop on this, and then afterwards, I'd like to introduce you. I don't think I said that. Anna was in Singapore, so I've been ad-libbing kind of as she's gone a little bit, but that's kind of the natural progression there.
One of the things that you were mentioning to me that is very, very powerful is the idea of calling people an hour or a couple hours before the webinar, when, you know, you can invite them right now, tonight.
with your cliff jumpers, people that you jump, they jump. It's really as simple as saying, and I've had several people do it. Joe, what are you doing in 30 minutes? Oh man, you gotta check this out. Get on your computer, go to this website, click on this thing. Okay, you got the webinar up and running. Okay, it's going to start in about 10 minutes. Watch this, and I'll call you after. And that's, everybody's, I guess most people, have cliff jumpers and things like that. And just incidentally, Art, since you did mention the Getting Started webinars on your team, I was, obviously, we're kind of cousins. Anna and Art, or I guess you would call them cousins, kind of within the Xango team and stuff. But as far as the Getting Started, we're going to be doing it on Wednesday. We're going to take a little time, and I think, if you like what you're hearing here tonight on the call, we're going to do it, we're going to record it, and we're going to make it available to people to listen to over and over and over again. And we're going to talk about, I know, Art, you talk about the warm market, the cold market, and the meat market. And we might break it down into, maybe like 4 different categories, including like, the 3-step plan, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be an invite webinar on Wednesday, and Art, I'll make sure to get you the link for that. And it's just basically, it's really simple stuff. If you're on Art's team, it's nothing you guys haven't been doing. The only difference is it's just tweaking things a bit to use webinars successfully. And just to kind of give you some numbers, Art, too, is I've been tracking this since May 1st. And let me just pull up an Excel spreadsheet. And I have the benefit of looking at the report every week, and our team, they do all the registering for their webinars, so they put who referred them. And I've done my best. These are the ones that I know about. I'm sure there's many that have slipped through the cracks, or there's people that have only listened to the webinar and not been on it. But since May 1st, we've had 217 guests on webinars, and let me just break this down. 15% of them, 15% are already in. And I would imagine there's another 15 to 20% that are very serious about it. And most of those, what's interesting is a lot of them are getting in June, because there's still a follow-up process, and we're kind of coming to the 4th of July. But it took, we started running webinars in February, but just, you were all learning. It's learning a new skill, getting the ship turned and things like that. But when I started tracking it and we started just kind of tweaking things and getting very concrete about, what we say to people, and that we follow up, or we call them an hour before to say, hey, Joe, did you get the confirmation? Which what it really does is serves as a reminder that says, hey, Bozo, don't miss the webinar in 1 hour. And, it's a nice way of reminding them for the webinar is what it really is. And it's been pretty amazing. And what's also cool is the people that are getting in the business, seeing the webinar for the first time, are signing up and sometimes having 2 or 3 people on the webinar that very night. And also what's happening is I have a guy named Anthony who's going to sign up possibly today. He's been on 3 or 4 webinars, but he's also had 3 or 4 other people already on webinars, and he's not even in yet. Because it's really simple. I don't have to send them.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's already, it's a way that he can present and without screwing things up. I mean, one of the challenges that we always have with guys like Anthony and people that are just getting their juice, is they start talking to people and without knowing what to say,
Mm-hmm.
and they blow their first best leads because their presentation is not very effective because they don't know anything yet.
Yep, and just yesterday I had signed up one of the best co-op leads I've ever talked to. Signed him up a week ago, and he had already had somebody on a webinar too. And then that person actually just called me directly yesterday and said, "Hey, Doug's busy today, but can you sign up?" Wonderful woman, Neely, and was somebody who was a cliff jumper. Said, "Hey, I'm excited about this," and I just said, "Hey, don't try to pitch him, just get him to the webinar." And then this same person on Wednesday last week, it was interesting. These people have never even been to a webinar, but they got on the Getting Started webinar and just sat in. And really, what our business is, it is the process. When when people are looking at what Xango is, it's how we do things. It's invite and follow up. That's what we do. We invite and we follow up. So they sat in on the Getting Started presentation, and we did a 3-way call with a room full of 3 or 4 people with Anna while she was in Singapore right after that call last Wednesday. So people are kind of getting at that, okay, get them on the webinar and then get them back to your upline as soon as possible, and just assume that they want to do it. It's what's next. It's what we do. And when people come into Xango that way, they automatically start doing it the second they sign up, because that's how they were presented Xango, and it's very quick.
Yeah, fantastic job, Mike. I just did a poll while you were talking. I'm not sure if you're online or not, about how many people did you invite to a webinar this last week, and I'll share the results here. What do you think is a good goal for people that are serious about their business? Just a minute.
As far as getting them on webinars?
Hold on a second here.
I can see it.
Yeah, share results. I'm just there. There's the results of that poll. So you can see about half of the people aren't using them yet, which is okay. I mean, this is a fairly new thing, as you could see in our team. 36% invited 1 or 2, 13% 3 to 5. 3%, those are probably people from your team, that are on here. But, what is your goal to get people? I mean, to me, if you're working at this extensively, you could have a goal to have a new person on every one, right? But what is your goal? What do you think? How many do you think you need to get on here to build a successful business onto one of these webinars?
Well, I think, probably you've got people at different points in their business. If somebody's brand new, they have the benefit of their whole list, and they've got their cliff jumpers left. And I think there's probably other people who have, they're maybe at 5K and they've kind of gone through that, and they're wondering where to go from there. So they're either have to go out and meet new people, or they have to buy leads through the 3-step plan. But I try to get one person on every webinar, and it might not sound like a lot, but sometimes, I'll have 2 or 3 registered. But if I get 5 people on a webinar during a week, and that's just me personally, but it's one quality person on a webinar, because I know if I get one quality person on a webinar, we're going to have some major things happening. And I've had 3 or 4 people on or even 5 or 6, I think, on certain webinars when things just come together just perfectly, and there's been times where I've had nobody. But, if I were somebody who had a list that's sitting there, it would absolutely be to get one person on every webinar, or 5 people on a webinar for a week. And, you do that for 2 months. Obviously most people don't have an endless supply of names unless you get up and go out and meet people and things like that. And sometimes that takes time to develop relationships and things. But if you're sitting there with a list, my thing would be to go through that list as fast as possible, because, the sooner you do it, the sooner they're going to get in your business and start duplicating. But, we always talk about getting one person on every webinar. And that, and still, things don't happen perfectly, but that's always been my goal, is one person every webinar, and shoot for more if I can.
Well, great job, Mike. Gosh, we could go on longer. Maybe we'll have you back on again sometime, but just really appreciate you. I know you had to juggle your schedule to come on here and share your experience. Thank you. And the other Mike, great job, Mike Rushing and Tim, for coming on. I really appreciate it. The time went fast. It's almost at the top of the hour. So thanks a lot, Mike. We'll see you on a webinar next week.
Thanks, Art.
And really appreciate you and your team for coming on here. Just to wrap up the call, gosh, guys, I mean, I have to tell you, if you're not on Exco Pro and getting these CDs every week, you're really missing the boat. We're talking about $1 a day to receive a weekly inspiration. I mean, Terry and I listened to Eric Walsh's CD just yesterday. Oh, my gosh, I was practically crying during parts of it. I mean, it was so powerful. And can you imagine your whole team getting one of those CDs a week? I mean, apart from everything else about Exco Pro and their alignment with mymangosteen.com and the nationwide tour, just to get one of those CDs a week and getting some new inspiration. Justin Prince, I got his on there talking about the Meal Pack program. Very, very powerful. So if you haven't joined yet, $29.95 a month. Includes My Mangosteen website, just unbelievable value there. And you get the CDs and you get all the stuff with it. Doug Weed, of course, nationwide tour. Been hearing incredible things. In fact, I talked to a leader in North Carolina, said her phone rang all day on Sunday after their event. Several hundred people at her event. And this is the schedule. Could have had Mike actually talk about it. Just went through Minnesota last weekend. Are you still there, Mike?
I am here.
What was the event for you in Minneapolis last weekend with Doug Weed?
It was awesome, and it was I had never met Doug, even though I was in Amway, never affiliated with the teams I was a part of, and I'd met John before briefly, but what was really neat about it was just Doug's perspective on why he chose Zango. I mean, he was offered $1 million to go with another company, just $1 million to really do nothing other than go around and promote that company and talk that he currently, to just talk like he does. But it was electric, and get your people there because that's where major decisions are made, and the feedback out of it was absolutely remarkable. And it was Father's Day weekend, but we had an awesome attendance. People came out in waves. We had people drive 6 hours to come up from that, and they said it was one of the best decisions they made.
Yeah, I had some folks drive that far. So thanks a lot, Mike, for that. Don't forget the ABCs are still running. Free sign-up with anybody on 2Case ADP. If you think about it, if you've got somebody on a one, and by the way, you guys do a phenomenal job when you're getting started training of telling why people should be on a 2Case ADP. But it's $100 and $35 for a membership to get on to buy a case, right? $135. It's only $65 for the second case if you present it that way. And of course, the golden ticket. You're going to want to get your golden ticket for convention. I know we're running out of time. Really appreciate Mike and everybody coming on. Whoops, that slide doesn't belong there. So thank you all for coming on. Just let's open up the lines and thank Mike and Tim and the whole team there for coming on, sharing their hearts, educating us and training us on how to effectively use the GoTeam webinar system. Thanks a lot, everybody. Let's give them a big thank you. Thanks, everybody.